9. Earth's electric envelope. D. In the early 1970s, atmospheric physicists finally woke up to the fact that the Earth's magnetic field was highly disturbed. Not all of those whistlers, hiss, horse, lion, roars, and other colorful sounds they had been listening to for half a century were caused by nature. This discovery came about as a result of efforts to deliberately alter the Earth's electromagnetic environment, efforts that have culminated today in the operation of Project HAARP located in Gacona, Alaska. See Chapter 16. Under contract with the Office of Naval Research, scientists at Stanford University's Radio Science Laboratory had built a 100 kilowatt VLF transmitter at Seppel Station, Antarctica, broadcasting in the 1.5 to 16 kilohertz range. The purposes of the 13-mile-long antenna that stretched over the frozen ice, according to Robert Helliwell, one of the members of the Stanford team, included control of the ionosphere, control of the radiation belts, and new methods of VLF and ULF communication. It had been discovered accidentally in 1958 that VLF transmissions originating on the Earth interact with particles in the magnetosphere, stimulating them to emit new VLF waves, which can then be received at the opposite end of the Earth. The purpose of the Stanford project was to do this deliberately, to inject sufficient quantities of very long frequency energy into the magnetosphere so that it would not only trigger new waves, but that these triggered waves might in turn cause electrons to rain out of the Earth's radiation belts into the atmosphere, altering the properties of the ionosphere for military purposes. A primary goal of the Department of Defense was to devise a method of stimulating the ionosphere to emit VLF, very low frequency, ELF, extra low frequency, or even ULF, ultra low frequency waves in order to communicate with submarines submerged beneath the oceans. The VLF transmitter at Seppel and a VLF receiver in northern Quebec at Roberval were part of this early research. The data they collected was surprising. First, the signal received in Quebec immediately after transmission from Antarctica was larger than expected. The waves broadcast from Antarctica were not only triggered new emissions from particles in the magnetosphere, but were being amplified more than 1,000-fold in the magnetosphere before returning to Earth and being received in Quebec. Only half a watt of broadcast power was required in order to be detected near the opposite pole of the Earth after being relayed from the magnetosphere. The second surprise was the Roberval was receiving frequencies that were unrelated to the frequencies that originated at Seppel, but that were instead multiples of 60 Hz. The Seppel signal had been altered on its journey through outer space to be the imprint of the electric power grid. Since those first discoveries, scientists have learned a great deal about this form of pollution, now known as power line harmonic radiation. It appears that harmonics from all over the world's power grids leak continuously into the magnetosphere, where they are greatly amplified as they bounce back and forth between the northern and southern hemisphere, generating their own rising and falling whistlers just like radiation from lightning. But there is a fundamental difference. Before 1889, whistlers and other lightning triggered sounds played continuously over the entire range of the terrestrial instrument. Today, the music is stilled, dulled, often confined to multiples of 50 or 60 hertz. Every component of the natural symphony has been radically altered. The dawn chorus is quieter on Sundays than on other days of the week, and the starting frequencies of most chorus emissions are power line harmonics. It seems likely that the entire hiss band is caused by power line radiation, wrote Halliwell in 1975, and the natural slow pulsations of the Earth's magnetic field below 1 Hz, which are also important to all life, are strongest on weekends, evidently because they are being suppressed by radiation from the power grid, and this radiation is stronger on weekdays. Anthony Fraser Smith, also at Stanford, by analyzing geomagnetic activity data collected in 1868, showed that this is not a new phenomenon, but has been happening since the first use of alternating current and has been increasing over time. Data collected between 1958 and 1992 showed that PC1 activity, representing geomagnetic pulsations between 0.2 and 5 Hz, has been 15 to 20% greater on weekends than in the middle of the week. The structure of the Van Allen radiation belts seems also to have been altered. What the Department of Defense had wanted to do intentionally was apparently already being done massively by the world's electric power grids. Why physicists had long wondered are the two electron-filled radiation belts around the Earth, an inner and an outer, separated by a layer that is virtually empty of electrons. This electron slot, something, is continually drained of its electrons by the interaction with radiation from power lines. These electrons, in turn, rain down over the Earth, modifying the electrical properties of the atmosphere. Not only may this increase the frequency of thunderstorms, but it may shift the values of the Schumann resonances to which all living things are attuned. In short, the electromagnetic environment of the entire Earth is radically different today from what it was before 1889. Satellite observations show that radiation originating from power lines often overwhelms natural radiation from lightning. Power line radiation is so intense that atmospheric scientists lament their inability to do fundamental research. There is almost nowhere left on Earth or even in space where a VLF receiver can be used to study natural phenomena. Under natural conditions as they existed before 1889, intense VLF activity, leading to electron rain and the shifting of the Schumann resonances, occurred only during geomagnetic storms. Today, the magnetic storm never ends.